5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Please do not change channel.
From Krypton Radio, brought to you by Famous Faces and Funnies and Off the Chain with Yvonne Mason. It's the Hangin' with Web Show Radio Hour, the Internet's premier pop culture talk radio show. You're tuned in, you're logged on, and now, your host, award-winning author and journalist GW Pomichter. Who are you hanging with?
Hello, World Wide Web. Welcome to the Hangin' with Web Show Radio Hour. I'm GW Pomichter.
I am Sage Ia.
I'm Deanna Marie.
That's right. And on the line with us, we've got the Orlando Wizard himself. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Robert Lupo. Hey, man, how are you tonight?
I am awesome. It's a beautiful day. I just got off a nice motorcycle ride, so.
It's a good day to be in Central Florida, isn't it? Yes.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Every day is a good day to be in Central Florida. It really is. You know, we got a great place to live here, man. Guys, welcome to the show tonight. If you're on Krypton Radio listening for the first time, if you're not, you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CBS Radios, Radio.com, or any number of other places where you can listen to the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Tonight's topic, guys, is going to be myths and legends and the role that myths and legends have played in building science fiction and popular culture today. Yeah, I know it sounds like a bit of a heady topic. I know it does, but it's a good topic.
I think it's a good topic.
It's a good topic. And it plays into a lot of the topics that are coming up down the road, too, because this is almost the kickoff to a series where we're going to talk about everything from comics and their role and how they play in literature. We're going to talk about monsters and mythological creatures and how they play in the role they play in popular culture. But we're going to start with myths and legends. Myths and legends, the foundation of our popular culture, of the stories that we love, the yarns we love to tell.
Yes. You know, I'm reminded of a quote.
You are?
I am.
What quote are you reminded of?
From Robert Jordan, who wrote the Wheel of Time series.
Yes.
And in every book, he would open up the beginning, and he would mention that. And I actually have it, so it's shortened. It's not the whole thing.
Yeah.
But memories become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth becomes long forgotten. When the age where they started comes back again. Right. So it's out there. It's in all of our popular culture.
It is everywhere. Everywhere that you think is even a modern fantasy telling has its roots somewhere in the myths and legends of our society as a whole. And so the topic tonight, the title of tonight's episode is Myths and Legends, Fable and Folklore.
Ooh, Fable and Folklore.
That's right. And how it grows into popular culture. So, Lupo, what do you think? Think we can handle this?
Yeah.
In an hour? in an hour. Yeah. No, probably not.
I think this is going to be, things like this has to be an ongoing series.
Absolutely.
We're going to scratch the surface in an hour, but we're not going to really get into depth because, when it comes down to it, myth and legends, this is what deities are made from. Everything, deities and gods started off as legends and myths and strange happenings. So I think it's interesting as society progresses forward, quite often we start jumping backwards. It's like 100 years ago, nobody thought the world was flat because we all knew for a fact it was round. And now a significant chunk of the populace thinks the world's flat again. It's like, what is wrong with people?
I don't get it.
We desperately want to believe in something.
We do. There's a need.
That's our core.
There is an ingrained need. And that really takes us to the beginning, because if we're going to talk about myths and legends, that's where you have to start. You have to talk about the beginning of modern man, because that's where our stories start, and that's where they become legends, which become myths, which become just a part of the fabric of culture over time. Mm-hmm. And so it really does start literally with us standing upright and deciding that we should travel in, sets of two or more. Because as soon as you get a group together and we form what will become the basis of our culture, we're going to kill time. And there's a lot of it to kill, because during certain times of the year, there's a lot of darkness.
That's true.
And during that dark time, what do? You tell stories. Mm-hmm. And those early stories
I understand this.
What's that?
I said I lived in Alaska. I understand this.
Absolutely.
Oh, see,
absolutely.
yeah.
Without a storyteller in town or a television nearby, any place that's dark like Alaska is going to be really dull.
Yes. Well,
you just brought up a really good point.
Yeah.
Televisions are storytellers now. We can listen to any story we want, and it's become more significant than reading a book.
Absolutely. Well, the story, the television today, and this is a whole other topic actually, but it speaks into this topic, so we'll address it. And that is, the television today is the modern firelight. It is the modern fireplace.
Absolutely.
It is where families gather. And while it does not necessarily provide heat in that kind of thing, it does provide warmth because it provides warm discussion, intellectual discussion, sometimes humor, the things that make our lives warm. It's the modern hearth, and so it has become that. Literary professors throughout the world are starting to engage and understand that, and see television and even film as the kind of literature that it truly represents. But it all started, again, around a different kind of firelight.
I think kids intrinsically know that, too, because they always want you to tell them a story.
They do. Mm-hmm. They do. And in lieu of you telling them the story, sitting with them, watching a good TV show or watching a movie or whatever, every kid always gets a big kick out of that, seeing the story happen in front of them and having a conversation or a dialogue with mom and dad about what's going on. It becomes a part of, again, our ability to pass those stories on.
Songs do it too.
What's that?
Songs do it too.
Absolutely. Songs are amazing stories. I always say songwriters have a gift that I don't even comprehend. As a writer, I don't understand it, because they can do in 3 minutes or less what takes 300 pages for me.
I told the witch doctor I was in love with you.
Boom, boom. Boom, 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 boom. That's right.
Well, I couldn't think of a Bigfoot or Sasquatch song
Thanks
fast
for
enough.
finding that in my head now.
No, yeah, there it is. It's there. It'll never go away. It's just the way it is. Yep, that's tonight's topic, guys. Myths and legends, their role in science fiction and pop culture, where they come from. And again, we're going to start at the beginning and work our way to now.
As
and
far
like
as we can.
as Lupo told you, it's probably more of an overview, because there's just no way you can dive into a topic like this in 1 hour and get it all out there. So we look forward to hearing from you, though. If you are listening on Krypton Radio, drop a comment down below. If you are listening on another platform, please send comments, emails. Come on over to Facebook, like our page, and send us messages. If you're right now listening on Facebook Live, because we are recording this as we broadcast live on Facebook, go ahead and leave your comments in the comments section and in the chat.
That's right, Julie Morgan.
That's right, Julie Morgan. Welcome, Julie Morgan. Author, Julie Morgan, the author of the soon-to-be absolute best-selling...
Indeed.
What would you call this? Noir romance mashup. Because Julie's like the mashup queen.
Paranormal mystery romance.
Paranormal mystery romance author. The novel coming out, Dick, very soon. And every time we say that, Dina laughs, and we don't know why, but we just go with it. So that's coming out very soon from Julie Morgan. Julie, thanks for being in the chat tonight. Guys, send questions or whatever. We're going to be talking about myths and legends, folklore, and fable, and the roles they play in pop culture. Lupo, do you have a favorite myth, legend? Do you have a favorite story that just harkens back to those early days?
Ooh. Actually, one of my favorite stories is where the Vikings got Valkyries from.
Ooh.
Are you familiar with that?
I am only loosely familiar with that. Ooh, I get a lesson. I love it when he's online.
Ooh, yes.
Awesome.
Well,
go, baby, go.
So everyone's familiar with the Northern Lights. Up in like the northern areas, where we see these beautiful waves of green and so forth. Being in Alaska for 2 years, we would see the Northern Lights. Well, the Norsemen saw the lights, and the legend is whenever you saw the Northern Lights, it was Valkyries taking warriors to Valhalla.
Ooh,
so
I like it.
You always knew that your ancestors were proceeding into Valhalla when you saw the Northern Lights.
That's pretty awesome.
Wow.
And
remember, every legend and every myth has a true start. In fact, it's like we have Thor, the god of thunder, because we have thunder. So what we do is we try to explain things when we can't explain it scientifically, and we go, well, this makes sense, and we'll go in that direction. And it's quite fascinating if you think about it. When you look at, we should have a whole discussion on religion. I study religion very extensively in school. And I just heard a roar outside, and I was like, was that thunder? No, it's a motorcycle.
It's a lion.
All religions, have a base based on things that happen or on an individual that happened.
Well, and there's a fundamental need in the human being to rationalize the world around 100%. Us. Your story about the Valkyrie and the Northern Lights is what's really evocative about that is the fact that it does make a certain kind of sense, and to explore that, we want to let everybody out. Remember, the Northern Lights at different places around the world are visible at different times. Right. As Lupo alluded to, in Alaska, you can see them quite frequently. In other places, you have to wait till sometimes the dead of winter. It's the way the Earth is canted for us to see the radiation coming off the going around us.
Because it only happens during solar flares.
Yes. So
what happens is the solar flare hits the Earth and it warps our protective electromagnetic field, and that's what creates the Northern Lights.
And in that creation process, where the Earth is canted, what time of the year it is, depends on how low into the atmosphere you will see them. They have been seen, I'm told, as low as the northern United States at times. The Northeast. But typically speaking, they stay in northern areas and only at certain times of the year. If you think about what the dead of winter is for the Norse back in those days, this is when our old are dying. This is when our children are ill. Winter's harsh. Mm-hmm. And when all of those bad things are happening and you're looking for a rationale and you see the Northern Lights overhead, it delivers to the human spirit a kind of hope. Hope that those who we have lost this winter or through the year in battle, that they are being carried off to Valhalla, that they are being taken to their next life. Guys, we are down to 1 minute. If you're watching on Facebook Live, you just saw this giant finger appear in the middle of your screen. That is us being told we have 1 minute until we have a commercial break, and that we have to take our huge train of thought and condense it down into a little thing. And so the very first segment of this show, guys, we've talked about the origins of myths and legends. Lupo shared one of his favorites, the story of the Northern Lights being the Valkyrie taking the warriors of yesterday and yesteryear off to Valhalla.
That was really cool.
It is really cool, and it makes some sense given, like I said, where these myths come from, the needs that they fill in the lives of everyday folk. Mm-hmm. And so when we come back, we're going to dive back in more myths, legends, fables, and folklores. On the other side of this commercial break, go ahead and take a listen to all these commercials are independent small businesses, independent creative artists. So please, pick a product, pick a link that's in the description. Go on over and check out some of these products. In the meantime, stay tuned in and stay logged on because we'll be right back. Mm-hmm.
Famous Faces and Funnies in Melbourne, Florida is leading the way in pop culture fun. From comic books and graphic novels to Funko Pops and collector's items, Famous Faces and Funnies has it all. Rick Shea and the professional team at Famous Faces and Funnies are friendly and knowledgeable. Whether you're looking for toys, props, collector treasures, or a new comic book, Famous Faces and Funnies is your one-stop shop. To find Famous Faces and Funnies on Facebook and Twitter, just type at FFF Comics.
Who's who, what's hot and what's not. 2019 saw some amazing new creative talents, and now you can peek behind the scenes at the hottest indie creative artists in this year's edition of 25 Hottest Indie Authors, Artist Advocates 2019 magazine, published by the renowned And I Thought Ladies. This is a one-of-a-kind look into the brightest rising stars in the creative universe. Get yours today at magcloud.com and at andwethought.com.
Mature and curvaceous Juliana faces the consequences of having two online lovers, the insanely jealous Aaron and the kind, sexy silver fox Bobby. To make her life more complicated, she must weather the wrath of her husband Rocco, who has discovered his suspicion and uncovers a deep, dark secret. And there are more secrets to uncover. Will these secrets come out? Can Juliana survive this tsunami of impossible situations? Will she be able to rebuild the life she once had? Or will the burden of the past prove too much? Is there even a happily ever after in her future? Read what happens when you pick up your copy of With All of Me Too today from joannesbooks.com or amazon.com.
Are you looking for a used car?
Check out the public auto auction app from carauctionnetworks.com.
You can download the app on your phone or tablet and use it for free, and there's no registration required.
You can see what's for sale at car auctions, such as
bank repos,
dealer trade-ins,
surplus government vehicles,
or impounds.
There are plenty of cheap used cars and trucks listed in the app.
You can save a lot of money with the public auto auction app.
You can also see and bid at car auctions online.
Get the public auto auction app for iOS at the Apple Store.
Or on Google Play.
Or simply go to carauctionnetwork.com.
That's carauctionnetwork.com. Change your life with Ray K Distance Energy from Energy Right Now.
What is Ray K?
Well, Ray K Distance Energy is positive energy transferred over distance by Ray K Energy practitioners to help you heal and live your best life.
How will Ray K help me?
Ray K Energy transfers can help increase your income, better your health, help you lose weight, even stop smoking. It can be used to buy or sell real estate, even find lost items.
Wow, Ray K Energy seems pretty powerful.
It is, and you can start calling on Ray K Energy today. Just reach out to practitioner Leah Schiller online at energyrightnow.wordpress.com.
Leah Schiller, where can I find her online again?
Unlock your potential today with Energy Right Now at energyrightnow.wordpress.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Hangin' With Web Show Radio Hour. I'm GW Pomichter.
I'm Sagea.
Deanna Marie.
And on the line, we have Dr. Robert Lupo, the Orlando Wizard. Dr. Wizard. Welcome, sir. The first segment of the show we kicked off. Our topic tonight is Myths and Legends, Folklore, and Fable. That's right. Myths, legends, folklores, and fables, these are the roots of every story ever told. These are the roots of our storytelling heritage as humanity. Earlier we talked about some of the more well-known or even lesser-known myths. Lupo hit us right up front with the legend of the Valkyrie.
That was cool.
From Norse mythology. Sage, do you have a favorite myth or legend, something that stands out, something in your head?
Yes.
You do?
I do.
How did we know?
I don't know.
Go.
I'm going squatching.
Going squatching?
Yes.
You know, earlier today we were having a conversation.
That's right.
And the subject of mythical creatures, as it were, came up, and Sasquatch came up, and Sage said, well, is that myths and legends? And we determined that it really was. Because this is not a legend that comes from popular culture today. These are legends that date back through Native American culture and prehistoric culture and in different parts of the world. And because of that, we've labeled that a myth or legend. Mm-hmm. But I want to explain that. And Lupo's, follow me around the curves here and see if you can't fill in the blanks that I leave out. Because really, myths and legends are those earliest stories that we told each other. We justified everything from the weather to the harshness of life. And it's popularly said in classrooms around the world, and it's been said on this show several times, that storytelling harkens to a tradition of sitting around the campfire, discussing and speculating what was out beyond the firelight. The beasts and the monsters and the critters that could get you. How big are the teeth and how long are the claws? And when you get to a point through the evolution of a society where you are the apex of the food chain, you start speculating. Because we're not here because we're the strongest. We're not here because we're the fastest. There are a lot of critters out there that could still just do a number on us. We're here because, so far, we're the smartest.
M-O-O-N, that spells smart.
Thank you, Stephen King. Thank you, Stephen King, for that. Yes, we're here because we're the smartest. And so when we start speculating what's beyond that firelight, what's out there in the darkness, and you're the top of the food chain, the very first question that I think just pops into your mind is, what if there's a creature as powerful and as fast as all those critters that are out there, but as smart as me? If he's as smart as me and he's as powerful and as big and as furry and as fast, then doesn't he, by definition, occupy a place on the food chain above me? Because he has all this...
occupy a position above the food chain above us as well, and they're not nearly as smart as we are. So it's for them power and strength. Like chimpanzees are incredibly strong and also have rudimentary tools. So when do we start looking at where the myths come? The key that we hit on early on is we are a people of rationalization. We have to rationalize everything until we have better facts or a better story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the fact that we have the Sasquatch, Bigfoot here in America, but, overseas in the Himalayas, they have the snowman,
the Yeti.
The abominable snowman.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the question. It's not that someone from here took stories over there and vice versa, because these kind of happen very similar time frames. So when we start talking about things like cryptozoology, at what point do the facts become fiction, and vice versa? It all starts with something.
A truth, something out there. We know that there's something out there that is bigger and badder, and we don't know what it is, and we have to explain it. And so when we do that, the very first thing we leap to is, well, what could be bigger and badder, maybe even smarter? What could be there? And it's our nature, I think, to create something beyond ourselves. Just like we create the gods and goddesses of old, we also create, again, if we don't know what species something is, and we haven't seen it, and we can't describe it, and we haven't tested it, and our science hasn't worked on it, that's not going to keep us from talking about it.
Exactly.
We're still going to talk about it, so we name it. We name it.
Right.
In the case of the U.S., Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the Europeans named it for its footprint because it was so large, but Sasquatch is a name that the Native Americans used to describe the creature. Yeti, again, what has been translated for us as the abominable snowman, the Yeti.
Yes, very
again,
much rooted in folklore, I think.
Very much rooted in the local folklore.
And keep in mind, sometimes the stories become factual. Old-time sailors talked about the Kraken, which was these gigantic creatures with huge tentacles that, could swallow a ship. And no one believed it for years until we saw the giant squid.
Centuries, actually.
Yes.
And the giant
squid.
The
It was
acceptance.
a legend,
Yeah.
And then a freaking squid showed up on the beach.
Yeah, the acceptance of the... For those of you that don't know this already, and I think a lot of our listeners will already know this across Krypton Radio and in the science fiction, and because you try to stay up to date on what's really going on, it wasn't until recently, the tail end of the 20th century, the early part of the 21st century, that the giant squid of old was actually recognized as a true biological entity. We had
not just a legend.
Not just a legend. Well into the later 20th century, this was a 500-plus year old myth of the Kraken, the giant squid, right out of Jules Verne's.
Mm-hmm.
But we, again, as Lupo pointed out, laying on the beach.
Yeah.
Laying on the beach, down
Surprise.
under. It was New Zealand, I believe, wasn't it, where they finally found the...
We caught a live one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can watch the autopsy of the one that was caught by the Japanese trawlers.
There was an amazing underwater video. The age that we live in with all the video tech out there, phones and things for underwater cases, it was just on the news not long ago. It was an underwater video. It was taken by a diver at extreme depths, and it was the most awesome display of the tentacles of the giant squid in action. And it was...
That's brilliant.
It was absolutely amazing, and you could tell how deep they were because the only light source was the camera, and so everything was black all around it, and but you could see just that. It looked like something right out of an Adobe After Effects program. It was amazing to see and huge. I mean, just it truly, you can see why sailors who might have seen this in times when we didn't understand biology, we didn't understand things, would have seen it as a sea monster. Because it's just massive and huge.
Without question, I see myself. I mean, look at the megalodon as a perfect example.
The Meg, baby, the Meg.
The Meg. We find the teeth today here in Florida over at Venice Beach. You can look and you see these dark patches in the sand, and if you take a sifter, you'll find petrified shark teeth. And in the shallows, people find megalodon teeth from time to time. So for years, people thought that the megalodons died out millions of years ago. But down in the trench, they found megalodon teeth that carbon date only 10,000 years ago. So the question is that's not very long for a
No,
species.
it isn't. And as a matter of fact, there are several theories about what a lot of different cryptozoological creatures might be. And usually, when the scientific community acknowledges the existence of a phenomenon or a creature, they usually tend to date it to something we misunderstood as being extinct. Either now or as recently as, like you said, modern man. And I think human beings have been around for about 1 million years. The modern human being, as we exist today, with our society and the beginnings of culture, has only been around for about 100,000 years, and agricultural society has been around for about 30,000 years, and what we are today as building cities and societies has only been around about 10,000 years. So with all that math that you have, all harkens back to the fact that modern human beings may have existed along something that we had assumed was gone long before. And if we exist beside something even back 10,000 years ago, we're going to talk about it because it's what we do.
Yeah. You know what? Jen Holland said, wouldn't it be scary if you actually right now thought the world was flat and Megalodon was coming after you? You would have nowhere to go. Eventually, you would.
I love it.
Wow. Good point. If the world were flat, right, then you could come to the edge of it and presumably fall off-ish, right? But it would also mean that if you were underwater or whatever, you would literally bump. It would be like a glass wall. Bump.
Oh my gosh, we're in an
just
aquarium.
bump into an aquarium wall.
Before we go to commercial,
that's crappy.
I just want to say something.
That's a bad deal.
Because I feel bad for putting the witch doctor in Lupo's head.
Oh no, you've got something else.
I do. Megalodon, doot 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 doot.
Oh my lord, she went there. Megalodon, do 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 do. Okay. That's way bigger than a baby shark. So,
yes.
Guys, we have to take another break. We've been talking about this segment actually was great in terms of myths and legends. We talked about, as Lupo put it, cryptozoology and cryptobiology and the mythological creatures that are out there, the kraken, the giant squid, the megalodon, which was real but may have existed and been the root of many sea monster legends alongside human beings, as well as Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Yeti, etc. So when we come back, what do you think we're going to talk about next? I have no idea. I literally have no idea, guys. I don't know what's going to happen next.
Jello. We'll talk about Jello. That's
Jello.
Jello.
The myths around Jello.
I'm all for that.
That's right. Guys, stay tuned in and stay logged on because we'll be right back.
Now on Amazon.com, ICoin from author Jeremy Mosby. It's an alternate reality, and the leader of the planet ICoin is none other than Benjamin Franklin. When corrupt officials threaten not only ICoin but the Earth as well, an unlikely chosen one, Jeremy, must face dark foes to save the Earth and ICoin alike. Author Jeremy Mosby takes readers on a superhero's adventure through this compelling and imaginative alternate universe. Get ICoin on Amazon.com today.
Now on Amazon.com, War Calls, Love Cries, a Civil War novel by Mark Barie. Isaac Wells is an innocent farm boy living in upstate New York. His dreams are shattered by a treacherous brother and the onset of a devastating civil war. War Calls and Love Cries is a fast-moving historical narrative. It is an emotional roller coaster ride and a riveting must-read book that you will think about and talk about for a long time to come. War Calls, Love Cries is the kind of book you will cherish for a lifetime. On Amazon.com today.
Best-selling and award-winning author of true crime and crime fiction, Yvonne Mason is back with a brand new book, The Pink Canary, a book that delves into the life of a drag queen and a marvelous whodunit. You can find this and all of Yvonne's other works on Amazon.com or find Yvonne Mason on Facebook and Twitter.
He's gonna kill me.
Buy your copy of Pink Canary now.
From authors Julie Morgan and Grayson Miller, and out of the great city of New Orleans emerges a detective tale to devour. The King of New Orleans is a demon who offers immortality for loyalty. The sheriff is a shifter with a badge who's lost his powers, and Natalia Cortez is the private dick who arrives to investigate a demonic killing. The rest is waiting to be uncovered by you. This dick is looking for a demon fuck. Pre-order on Amazon.com today.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Hangin' with Web Show Radio Hour. I'm GW Pomichter.
I am Sage Ia and distracted. Sorry.
And
Deanna Marie.
And on the line with us, we have Dr. Robert Lupo, the Orlando Wizard, or as Sage calls him, Dr. Wizard. Dr. Wizard and I have been talking about, with Sage and Deanna, of course, we have been talking about myths and legends, the role they play in the popular imagination. And we finished up the last segment, which really was great. We diverged into myths and legends surrounding sort of cryptobiological creatures and entities.
We did.
What was great about that is where we ended. But real quick, we wanted to throw one in there for Lupo that we got from our Facebook audience. And that was...
The Jersey Devil.
The Jersey Devil. That's right. And this is a legend. Again, this is a legend that harkens back to almost every society on the planet believes in the, quote, wild man being. It's the human that's been abandoned somehow and raised in the wild with animals. And that yields many different variations. The one we're most familiar with in U.S. or Western culture right now is the Jungle Book, Mowgli and the Jungle Book. Mm-hmm. But this is a legend that has been passed around as it around the world.
Yeah, there was an X-Files episode on the Jersey Devil.
There was. As a matter of fact, it was a great episode because we talked earlier about what it takes for us to start speculating about something and creating these images and these legends in our head. And one of those things was a creature or being that is as ferocious as an animal, but as smart as a person. And when that happens, that beast then occupies a space above us on the food chain, something to be feared and revered. And when we start that process of fear and reverence, we create a myth and a legend and a story.
You know where
around
else?
it.
Do you know where else that's?
Sure, that's not politics.
Yeah, pretty sure because there are lots of things that are bigger than us, but not a lot that are smarter.
This is true.
But you know what? Like we were talking like with the Jersey Devil. You know that just showed up actually recently. Mm-hmm. There's a variation of that in Doom Patrol. Do you remember? Because the chief.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Nice. Thank you, Dina. Thank you.
She
hit the sound effects. Yes, I believe. Yeah. Really. Now, where we ended the last segment, though, was we had been talking about a creature that is probably, and given the timeline and the science that's uncovered here, probably a basis for some sea legends and sea monster legends. That was the megalodon, the giant shark, the megalodon, prehistoric creature that may have existed as recently as 10,000 years when we were seafaring.
There's a story over in Australia by people who have witnessed what they claim could have been something like the megalodon. Basically, there was a boat tipped over. I could be getting the story slightly wrong, but the gist of it is divers, people in the water. I think it was actually divers, over past the Great Barrier Reef, and the two guys were just talking to each other. And as the way the guy says it, he was talking to his friend. And then all of a sudden, this whirlpool just like opened up below his friend. His friend vanished within a matter of seconds. Just big surprised look on his face. He saw nothing but this massive fin swim away. He said
that's a bad
it was
day.
Bigger than anything he had ever seen.
Wow.
But hence, a shark swallowed his friend whole. Didn't yank him down. Just opened its mouth, fell in. Basically, water just went in like a whirlpool, and then gone.
Wow, again,
found any
and that speaks to our necessity, something in our chemistry that we have to want to explain that somehow, and which brings us again to we were talking about how our myths and our legends end up in our popular culture, end up in our science fiction, in our fantasy, in our storytelling, and the Meg is a great place to go because that's one of the most recent properties out there was the modern telling, the Meg, the movie, the Meg, which I know Lupo went and saw. There's a Lupo and Lee review of it on YouTube. For those of you who want to check that out, check out Lupo and Lee reviews.
I gave it a thumbs up. It was actually very good.
It was. It was a very good movie. And what I actually loved about the movie is that as a storyteller and a person who appreciates storytelling, I think most movies like the Meg have tended to be what you could refer to, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way. I simply mean that something came first, and then everything else came as a copy, and that was they were all rehashes or knockoffs of Jaws. Jaws scared the heck out of us in the 70s, and the formula has been to recreate that over and over and over again. And the one thing that you can't ever recreate is the originality of the original story. And so what Meg did was they took some of those same tropes that have been created since Jaws. They used them, but they didn't recreate the Jaws story. They told their own, and they did it very, very well. And, of course, they recreated a creature with the magic of computers and CGI and everything else. That shark scared the heck out of me, man. He could eat, like, my car, one bite, and that was scary. And so, but yeah, that's, again, these legends that have been passed down from seafarers the world over for 600 years make their way into popular culture in the cinema in the form of Meg, which is a modern telling of this sea monster tale. And it was a very good telling of the tale.
It was.
And so.
Yes, we got to really dive into that legend.
Oh, did you see what she did there? She just, wow. The episode just tanked. Oh, there's more. It keeps coming.
You know what? You're both all wet.
Oh, man. There we go.
I don't know.
Oh, my Lord. The Facebook, I think everybody just left Facebook. They were like, oh, no. It's like, dad joke hell in here.
Yeah.
Man. Well, okay. So that. Yes.
Whole dive.
Boom.
Cricket.
Chirp, chirp. Yeah, okay. So we are in the third segment of the show. We did cryptobiology. We did early origin stories of myths and legends. Let's do.
Any questions?
Are there any? Does the class have any questions?
No, the class is posting pictures of dolphins.
The class is posting pictures of dolphins
and sharks.
Wow. Oh my. Oh, there she goes with the song.
I have
again.
something.
Yes. What do you got?
Okay. Well, because when we talk about folklore too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
folklore is a huge part of building legends.
Think about Paul Bunyan.
Okay.
And
yes.
and Babe and the Big Blue Ox. Right.
Yes.
Now, from what I remember, that was originally to explain how the Grand Canyon got there because he dragged his axe through, right?
Yeah.
But all of those things, like you said earlier, have to come from somewhere because we're trying to find an explanation of how that could possibly be. Right?
Yeah, no, I think it's very good. Folklore is, you had read that quote earlier, which talks about the process of going from us sitting around here on Skype making stuff up to it becoming legend and on to myth. And folklore is where it starts. Folklore really is, because folklore is the literal definition of that is the tale of the people, the folks' tale. And so what happens is people locally in a given area talk about the weather. They talk about how land formations were formed. I'm from upstate New York. We're all familiar with the stories of Johnny Appleseed, where the apple seeds came from. We're all familiar with Rip Van Winkle.
Yes.
Okay. So that being said,
I slept through that story.
Somebody was going to do it. It had to be Lupo. Yeah.
Wasn't me this time, though.
We're familiar with these tales, and
it was a sleeper.
And as they become more and more ingrained in a society, they spread, and they spread across out of their folklore locations into the popular imagination of a larger society. Sleepy Hollow is a great example of that. The Legends of Sleepy Hollow, the Headless Horseman, for those of you out there that are more familiar with the horror renditions. The Legends of Sleepy Hollow was a folk tale in the Northeast. It spread and it spread and it spread. It became a horror tale all over the United States. And today, the Headless Horseman figure, the Sleepy Hollow figure, is recognized almost globally, particularly in Europe and those places. But that's in part as something goes from being folklore to being legend. Now, they haven't approached the level of myth yet, because myth implies that there's something in the tale that we inherently believe in.
What about the Mothman?
Well, what do you think? What do you think? That's very localized. The Mothman is a very localized phenomenon, and yet it has global implications today. It's being discussed on. For those of you who are familiar with the History Channel or A&E, Ancient Aliens talks a lot about the Mothman in its xenobiology area as a creature. Lupo, what do you think? The Mothman, legend yet? Folklore still? Maybe not quite myth yet.
Well, no, because it does base on sightings and views, because we don't really have a size account for it, but I saw something years ago that could have explained something very similar to that. I was actually in Fresno, California, and I was talking to a very good friend of mine, and there were a group of us there. And I just turned around and glanced up,
and this humanoid figure with kind of like bat-like wings, almost like a gargoyle, landed on top of the building and then jumped down and vanished. And I just sat there literally breathless and stunned. And I turned around and I'm like, did anyone just see that? Because I thought I was insane. And they said, well, what did you see? And I said, I described what I saw. And they said, oh, yeah, that follows her around all the time. And I'm like, you see this? They said, we see it all the time.
Wow. See, and again,
I mean,
I
wouldn't have believed it if I didn't see it with my own eyes. I was absolutely just, to this day, I'm like, how do I explain that?
Yeah, from eyewitness accounts to how do I explain that to legend. And again, we have to go take another. This time is actually flying through these segments. We have to take another commercial break.
I think she does that right when we start talking about
when
cool stuff.
we come back though. We're going to talk a little bit about the final transition, and that is from eyewitness accounts and explanations and desperation to legend, or to folklore to legend, and then on to myth. How does something go from being a legend to being mythological in scope? Let's talk about that when we come back on the other side of this commercial break. And when we come back on the other side of the break, we're going to grab Lupo and Sage and Dina here, and we're going to see if we can figure out what are the things that take something to the next level, to take a legend and create a myth. In the meantime, stay tuned in and stay logged on. Thank you, everybody on Facebook Live. Thank you on Krypton Radio, iHeartRadio, iTunes for continuing to listen. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break. Stay tuned in and stay logged on. We'll be right back.
The Right of Wands. One boy, one right. And a world of deadly secrets that could change the course of history forever. It's time for The Right of Wands by Mackenzie Floor. When a horrible fate reveals itself during the Right of Wands ceremony, Myrda must find a way to change his destiny. Forbidden from revealing the future, he is granted a wand and magical powers in order to save himself and those he loves. But Myrda is not the only one with secrets. The Right of Wands by Mackenzie Floor, available on Amazon.com now.
The Blood Phoenix Chronicles by author Michael J. Allen.
I refuse to let them burn me alive. That one selfish mistake murdered hundreds and cost a fairy queen her throne. Like it or not, heaven created me to protect. I'm out of time, the last water phoenix in Atlanta. The only way I can interrupt the Sheep's plot to steal creation is risk true death. Failure means the end of everything. Success might just redeem my sins.
Get your copy of the newest book in the Blood Phoenix Chronicles by author Michael J. Allen, available exclusively on Amazon.
Every year, tens of millions of people flock to Florida for its sunny beaches and world-famous tourist attractions. Most never learn about the strange and unusual locations just off the beaten path. From the UFOs of Gulf Breeze to Robert the Haunted Doll in Key West, learn about the myths, monsters, and legends from the dark side of the Sunshine State with author Mark Muncy and illustrator Carrie Schultz in their books Eerie Florida and Freaky Florida from the History Press. Find them at eerieflorida.com or wherever books are sold.
This is Cosplay Michael with the Hangin' with Web Show. I want to tell you about my friends at Embellis Effects in Orlando, Florida. They've got makeup, costumes, and props for all of your costume needs. And the team at Embellis Effects is helpful and friendly. Embellis Effects is one of my favorite places, and I know it will be yours too. I'll see you there. Or go to embelliseffects.com. And remember, cosplay is for everyone.
All right, everybody. We are back with the Hangin' with Web Show Radio Hour. I'm GW Pomichter.
I'm Dr. Wizard.
You are not Dr. Wizard. Dr. Wizard is over there.
Wizard. My God.
That is Dr. Wizard.
I thought he was going to say I'm Sagia. That would have been so much fun.
Never let it be said that we don't miss an opportunity at every available opportunity. Guys, we are in the studio. We've been talking about myths and legends. We want to talk about some fundamental elements that create, first of all, in the beginning, what creates folklore, what makes it legendary, and then that final transition, what elevates it to the category of myth and mythos.
The doctor had some good points.
Yes, actually, Lupo had some really good points. Let's start at the beginning. If you're going to create folklore, the initial story, you've got a handful of eyewitness stories, you've got a handful of disparate tales being told. What's going to elevate it into being the people's tale, the folklore?
Right. So, as I said during the break, the primary functions of folklore, you have three things. It's either to teach a lesson, don't eat the gingerbread house, or don't be greedy, or the witch is going to eat you. It has to give you, it's to teach you a lesson, give a warning, or explain an event. Those are your three functions of folklore.
So if I'm going to teach a lesson, it's like, be generous, because here's the story about somebody who was generous and good things happened to him, and here's someone who wasn't generous. Scrooge is a perfect example. Or give a warning. Don't go into the woods. The last person who went there had a little red cape on, and she was attacked by a wolf. So
bad day.
There's always some level behind everything, but it's usually to teach a lesson, give a warning, or explain an event. Paul Bunyan's drug his axe across and created the Grand Canyon. So these are your folklore functions. Now, to move past folklore into legend is how the stories get modified and changed.
It also, I think a lot of that has to do also with scope and scale, because folklore is something that is generally seen as tied to a location, tied to a certain geography or group of people of common interest, whereas there comes a point when the story's been modified or changed or spread to a point where it is, again, in today's society, we'd say, it's kind of gone viral, it's global, it's bigger. But even in early days, when the Brothers Grimm went around and gathered up all of the folklore, and those became their stories, and those, many of which became so grandiose that they became legendary. And the legends of something. So I think getting a legend status has a lot to do.
A lot, by the way, because those original stories were extremely violent and very, very scary.
Yes, I want to remind everybody out there that while we here in Central Florida do love our Mickey Mouse, he is an awesome guy. But when he tells a tale, he tends to make it a little bit more palatable to a modern children's audience. So many of those original tales, particularly the Grimm tales, were just that. They were grim. Not just the Brothers Grimm. They were grim.
Overlook the fact that he's a 6-foot rat.
Yes.
How come we don't think about that? Here's a 6-foot giant mouse staring at us. Why is that not scary?
If you want to know if it's actually scary to the human animal, all you need to do is look at a toddler who sees Mickey Mouse for the first time. It's terrifying.
He's a 6-foot rat.
That's right.
I'm just saying.
That's going to eat you.
Yes.
Yeah, you're pretty sure of it.
Yes.
Now, okay, so we have folklore.
Mm-hmm.
We either explain something, warn about something, or teach something.
Okay.
Folklore then goes, as the vernacular of today says, goes viral and becomes legend. And typically speaking, only the best. So only the really good folk tales will grow and go viral and become legend. But then the top percentage of those legends will be seared into the popular imagination and will become myth. They will have a mythological element. They will become society's mythos.
Okay, I have a question.
So what does it take? What do you guys... I'm going to go around the room and see just our thought processes here as we all try to weigh in. What does it take to go from legend to myth? To become that ingrained in our popular imagination?
I think it's the other way around, personally.
You think so? See, I think myth in my mind speaks to a level of belief. See, from when you get folklore, it's again, like you said, it's don't go in the woods. The last girl that did was in a red hood and she got taken by a wolf. We necessarily get the message of the story, but we don't necessarily believe the story. It's not like, oh yeah, Red Riding Hood actually went into those woods. We're not in love with the belief of it. Now, in legend, we tend to say, hey, back in the day, it was a legend because they believed it. And so that's that viral folklore that everybody tended to believe, but they believed it back in the day. Mythos, to me, speaks of something that is so ingrained that the population who really takes it to the next level has a level of belief in what they're saying. So we talk about the most common myths, obviously, that are known about, or the most commonly referred to myths, are those of the ancient religions, the Norse gods, the Greek gods, the Roman gods. The people who were spreading these legends, telling these tales, had a level of devotion and belief. And to me, that's what took them into the next level of mythos, because they were believed. Today, the stories of the Greek mythological gods could probably be more easily categorized, downgraded as legends, because, Lupo and I would say, well, back then they believed this, but we don't believe it anymore. Whereas most modern religions that are being practiced today have elevated themselves beyond legend into mythos because that theological element where the participant actually believes the story on a level that's ingrained. And belief is something, by the way, out there on the web. There are a lot of things that can be, you can change someone's opinions. You can change someone's perspectives. What is difficult to change is someone's belief. If someone believes something, then they're hanging on to that very, very tightly. And so I think belief for me is the number one ingredient in taking a legend and making a myth.
Because when you're dealing with belief, if you truly believe it in your heart, no matter what facts are presented to you, no matter what science is presented to you, you're not going to accept it unless you're open-minded. And there's so few open-minded people these days. A perfect example is something we talked about earlier on, that hundreds of years ago, nobody believed the world was flat. And now tons of people believe the world is flat, regardless of what you show them, because people want a conspiracy. So, when you're talking about myths, it's all about the conspiracy. The mayor is hiding the fact that there's a dragon living in the woods, and we should uprise against it because, dragons are bad. And if you want to believe something, no matter how outlandish it is, you're just going to believe it. And there's nothing anyone can say to really change your mind.
Exactly. So I think when a story gets elevated from folklore, goes viral, becomes legend, that final element that is going to make it myth, that's going to make it so that a population, whether now, permanently, or in the past, a population is going to embrace this as a myth, a part of the, again, let's go back and use another Greek word, a part of the ethos of the society. When that happens, the number one ingredient necessary is that belief, that thing that cannot be challenged. Because if you'd have gone up to a Greek, an ancient Greek, and told them what static electricity in the ionosphere was doing for lightning and thunder, they would have said, yeah, well, Zeus would disagree with you, dude. And I mean, they don't care.
Say dude.
I just did. I said dude. They wouldn't have cared. Zeus made it happen. No. That's the way it happened. If so again, today, I think what we would elevate to the level in storytelling of mythos would be those things that are in popular or commonplace religious theologies throughout the world, because those things are ingrained in belief. And they may change over time, and we may replace the theology of today, but we will always refer to as yesterday's theology as mythology, because it did exist and it did have belief. And so I think that's the final ingredient, the key thing that you need there. Guys, she has got the finger coming at us again
Dina
on Facebook Live.
Us the finger.
They can see her giving us the finger yet again. We got about 1 minute. We have to wrap up the show.
Man.
In the 1 minute that we have, though, I want to let everybody know what's going on, because things are just happening and popping here at the Hangin' with Web show. It's great.
Tell us what's going
on. All right, so first things first. Right here on the display here on the Facebook Live, if you're watching on Facebook Live, you can see the wonderful box. These are this year's Pro Passes that we just arrived for world famous Comic-Con International in San Diego, California. We have not decided as yet as we're going to be able to attend, but it is wonderful to receive my Pro Pass as a writer and an author and a creator for San Diego Comic-Con. So that's coming up in July.
If you don't go, I'll go.
Oh, there you go. So that's coming up in July. We also we are going to be out this weekend. We have been playing around with it for quite some time, but we are now officially debuting our Patreon, Patreon channel over on Patreon. We're going to have a handful of exclusive content, some behind-the-scenes videos, some photographs of different events, things like that. Most of all, we're going to enter you for a chance to win some great books from amazing authors that have sat here in the Hangin' with Web Show chair. We're going to enter a chance to win merchandise, T-shirts, hats, coffee mugs, that kind of thing.
Cool music.
But what we do encourage everybody to do is, if you can, support the show. We love doing what we do. We love traveling all over the place to do it, and we need your help. So please consider making a $5 donation or more monthly pledge on our Patreon page.
Yes,
please.
www.patreon.com/Hangin' with Web show.
That's right. Any of the merchandise can also be bought on cafepress.com/Hangin' with Web show. Guys, thank you all so much for listening to the show tonight on Krypton Radio or across all of the podcast platforms that are out there. Thank you so much for listening. We have had a blast hanging out with the Orlando Wizard, Dr.
Yes.
Robert Lupo.
Dr. Wizard,
That's
always
right.
a pleasure.
In the studio, we have Seijia. And over there where you can't see her off camera, just pushing buttons, all the buttons, is Deanna Marie. Guys, we are the Hanging With Web Show. Thank you for watching live on Facebook Live. We're going to keep going on Facebook Live for a few minutes here after we end the radio show. But until then, stay tuned in and stay logged on and see who we're hanging with next.